A cracked shield sinks into the desert, its bronze dulled by time. A war elephant collapses, its breath thick with blood, its massive form a monument to a forgotten struggle. They called it victory. But beneath the sun-bleached bones of Raphia, a triumph of arms concealed the seeds of an empire's decline. This is the story of a battle that reshaped the Hellenistic world, not through conquest, but through the unforeseen consequences of its own success. When Alexander the Great died in 323 BC, his vast empire, forged in a decade of unparalleled conquest, lacked a clear successor. This power vacuum plunged the Hellenistic world into decades of brutal conflict, known as the Wars of the Diadochi, or Successors. From this crucible of ambition and warfare, three dominant Hellenistic kingdoms emerged, each vying for supremacy. The Antigonid dynasty controlled Macedon and Greece, the ancestral heartland of Alexander's power. To the east, the sprawling Seleucid Empire, founded by Seleucus I Nicator, stretched from Anatolia to the Indus Valley, a vast but often unwieldy dominion. Finally, in Egypt, Ptolemy the Soter established the Ptolemaic dynasty, securing the wealthiest and most strategically vital satrapy. Egypt, with its fertile Nile Valley and access to Red Sea trade routes, became the jewel of the Hellenistic world. The Ptolemies, ruling from the magnificent new city of Alexandria, inherited a land of ancient traditions and immense resources. Their rule, however, was fundamentally colonial, with a Greek Macedonian elite governing a vast native Egyptian population. The Seleucid Empire under Antiochus III harbored ambitions of restoring the territorial grandeur of Alexander's original empire. Antiochus, later known as the Great, embarked on a series of campaigns to reassert Seleucid authority over lost territories. His gaze inevitably turned towards Coile Syria, a strategically vital strip of land bordering both empires. Coile Syria, encompassing modern-day Lebanon, southern Syria and Palestine, was not merely a territorial dispute. It controlled crucial trade routes, offered access to Mediterranean ports, and served as a vital buffer zone between the two great powers. Its possession was paramount for both Ptolemaic security and Seleucid expansion. For over a century, the Ptolemies and Seleucids engaged in a series of Syrian wars over this contested region. Three major conflicts had already been fought, with Coile Syria frequently changing hands. The Fourth Syrian War, ignited by Antiochus III's aggressive expansion, would culminate in the decisive confrontation at Raphia, a battle that would irrevocably alter the trajectory of Ptolemaic Egypt. The year is 217 BC. The stage is set near Raphia, a coastal town in southern Palestine. Two monarchs, representing the zenith of Hellenistic power, stood poised for a confrontation that would define their reigns. To the west, Ptolemy IV Philopator, the fourth ruler of the Ptolemaic dynasty, led the Egyptian forces, often depicted by ancient chroniclers as more interested in artistic pursuits and revelry than military command. Ptolemy IV faced immense pressure to defend his kingdom's borders. Opposing him was Antiochus III, a king of formidable military reputation and boundless ambition. Having already demonstrated his prowess in campaigns across his vast empire, Antiochus sought to reclaim Coile Syria and solidify his claim as the preeminent Hellenistic monarch. His army was a testament to the Seleucid Empire's diverse resources and military might. The scale of the forces assembled at Raphia was staggering, a testament to the logistical capabilities of these ancient empires. Ptolemy IV commanded an army estimated at around 70,000 infantry, 5,000 cavalry, and 73 war elephants. Antiochus III's forces were slightly larger, numbering approximately 62,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry, and 102 war elephants. These numbers represent one of the largest engagements of the Hellenistic period, a clash of titans in every sense. The composition of these armies reflected the cosmopolitan nature of Hellenistic warfare. Both sides fielded the formidable Macedonian phalanx, armed with the sarissa, a pike up to 18 feet long, forming an impenetrable wall of spears. Alongside these elite phalangites were Greek mercenaries, Thracian skirmishers, Galatian warriors, and various other ethnic contingents, each contributing their unique fighting styles. Crucially, Ptolemy IV's army included a significant contingent of native Egyptian soldiers, the Machimoi. For generations, the Ptolemies had relied primarily on Greek and Macedonian settlers and mercenaries for their military. However, the sheer scale of the Fourth Syrian War necessitated the mass recruitment and training of indigenous Egyptians, a decision that would have profound and unforeseen consequences for the dynasty. The most visually striking and psychologically impactful units were the war elephants. Antiochus's elephants were the larger, more aggressive Indian elephants, acquired from his eastern territories. Ptolemy's elephants were the smaller, North African forest elephants, captured from regions like modern-day Eritrea. The clash of these pachyderms, their tusks often tipped with iron, their riders skilled in their handling, was a spectacle of ancient warfare, a terrifying force capable of breaking enemy lines and sowing panic. The battle commenced with the thunderous charge of the war elephants. Antiochus, leading his Indian elephants on his right flank, aimed to outflank Ptolemy's smaller African elephants. The initial engagement was brutal. The larger Indian elephants, despite their numerical superiority, struggled against the Ptolemaic elephants, which were perhaps better trained or more accustomed to the terrain. Ancient accounts suggest that the African elephants, though smaller, were more agile and perhaps less prone to panic. However, the elephant battle was not decisive. As the massive beasts collided, their roars echoing across the plain, the true strategic maneuvers began. Antiochus, a skilled cavalry commander, personally led a powerful charge of his elite cavalry on his right wing. This charge successfully routed Ptolemy's opposing cavalry, driving them from the field. In a moment of tactical misjudgment, Antiochus, flushed with this initial success, pursued the fleeing Ptolemaic cavalry far from the main battle line. This decision, while seemingly a decisive blow, left the center of his phalanx exposed and vulnerable. It was a classic error of overextension, prioritizing the pursuit of a broken wing over maintaining the integrity of the main formation. Meanwhile, on the other flank, Ptolemy's cavalry, led by his general Echecrates, managed to hold their ground against the Seleucid left wing. The true turning point of the battle, however, occurred in the center. With Antiochus absent, the Ptolemaic phalanx, bolstered by the newly trained Egyptian Machimoi, engaged the Seleucid phalanx. The fighting was fierce and protracted. The disciplined Ptolemaic phalanx, despite initial setbacks, held its ground. The Machimoi, fighting for their homeland and their king, displayed unexpected courage and tenacity. Their presence, fighting shoulder to shoulder with Greek and Macedonian phalangites, was a novel and powerful factor in the battle's outcome. As Antiochus returned from his pursuit, he found his center in disarray. The Seleucid phalanx, without the direct command of their king and facing a determined Ptolemaic advance, began to waver. The Ptolemaic forces, sensing victory, pressed their advantage. The Seleucid lines broke and a general rout ensued. Antiochus, despite his earlier success, was forced to retreat, leaving the field to Ptolemy. The Battle of Raphia was a resounding victory for Ptolemy IV. Antiochus III, having suffered significant casualties and a blow to his prestige, was forced to abandon his claims to Syria and sign a humiliating peace treaty. Ptolemy returned to Alexandria a hero, celebrated for defending Egypt's borders and securing its strategic interests. The immediate threat to the Ptolemaic kingdom had been repelled. However, beneath the veneer of triumph, Raphia contained the seeds of the Ptolemaic dynasty's long-term decline. The most significant consequence was the role played by the native Egyptian machimoi. For the first time in generations, a large contingent of indigenous Egyptians had been armed, trained, and fought effectively in a major battle for the Ptolemaic state. They had bled for the empire, and they had contributed decisively to its victory. This experience fundamentally altered the relationship between the Greek ruling elite and the native Egyptian population. The machimoi had witnessed the inner workings of the Ptolemaic military, seen their Greek commanders in action, and understood their own capacity for organized resistance. They had fought alongside the Greeks, proving their worth, and now they expected more than mere silver coins for their service. They sought recognition, equality, and a greater voice in the kingdom they had defended. The Ptolemaic system, however, was built on a rigid social hierarchy that privileged Greeks and Macedonians. The ruling elite in Alexandria, steeped in Hellenistic culture and often dismissive of native traditions, largely sneered at these peasants who had dared to fight as soldiers. They were seen as tools, not partners. This dismissive attitude, coupled with the machimoi's newfound sense of empowerment, created a volatile situation. The whispers began in the markets, in the temples, in the taverns of Upper Egypt. These men, once mere peasants, had seen kings fall and had themselves stood firm against a formidable enemy. They had tasted power and agency. Within years, these whispers ignited into open rebellion. The most significant uprising was led by Horwenifer, also known as Ankhwenifer, who declared himself pharaoh in Upper Egypt. This was not merely a localized revolt. It was a full-blown attempt to re-establish an independent Egyptian kingdom, complete with its own pharaohs, coinage, and administrative structures. The Ptolemaic grip on Upper Egypt, the traditional heartland of ancient Egyptian civilization, was severely challenged. The Ptolemaic dynasty spent nearly 2 decades, from 206 to 186 BC, engaged in a brutal struggle to crush this widespread rebellion. It was a costly and draining conflict, diverting resources and attention from external threats. While the Ptolemies eventually won on paper, reasserting control over Upper Egypt, the victory was hollow. The rebellion had exposed the fundamental fragility of Ptolemaic rule. It demonstrated that the native population, if sufficiently motivated and organized, could pose a serious threat to the Greek elite. The dynasty was forced to make concessions, granting greater autonomy to certain temples and local leaders, and integrating more Egyptians into the lower ranks of the administration. In their attempts to erase the memory of the rebellion, the Ptolemies engaged in a campaign of historical revisionism. Hieroglyphs commemorating the rebels were scraped from monuments, scrolls detailing their actions were burned, and scribes were silenced. This deliberate suppression of historical memory aimed to reinforce Ptolemaic legitimacy and prevent future uprisings. However, they could not erase the lesson learned. The Battle of Raphia, while a tactical victory, had inadvertently empowered the very population that the Ptolemies sought to control. It shattered the illusion of an unchallengeable Greek elite and revealed the deep-seated resentment simmering beneath the surface of Ptolemaic Egypt. The dynasty, once the wealthiest and most stable of the Hellenistic kingdoms, entered a period of internal strife and gradual decline. The Ptolemies would never fully recover their former strength. Subsequent rulers struggled with internal dissent, court intrigues, and renewed external pressures from the Seleucids, and later the rising power of Rome. The need to constantly suppress internal revolts weakened their military, drained their treasury, and undermined their authority. The victory at Raphia, by empowering the machimoi, had inadvertently set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately contribute to the dynasty's demise, culminating in the Roman conquest under Cleopatra VII. On the fields of Raphia, glory was won, but destiny was irrevocably altered. It stands as a stark reminder that even the brightest victories can cast the longest and most destructive shadows. The echoes of that day, the clash of elephants, the shouts of the phalanx, and the silent whispers of a newly awakened people resonate through history, a testament to the complex and often paradoxical nature of power. If stories like this, where forgotten victories echo louder than triumph and the subtle currents of history shape empires, move you, then subscribe to History Unburied. Join our community of history buffs, military enthusiasts, and scholars as we delve into the untold narratives that define our past. Explore the strategic brilliance, the political machinations, and the human drama that shaped the ancient world. Your journey into the depths of history begins here